All right. Before we get into it, I realized this shirt looks crazy. I spilled bleach on myself, and I was like, I kind of like the pattern. I'm gonna keep this. I'm not gonna throw this away. So y'all tell me. I feel like nothing actually matters as long as I'm not on here naked. But the point of this video is for me to address your comments. So let's put some of those up and I'll get real specific. Pretty Mess says, no mention that the allegations were going to be covered in the first draft of the film. Scenes scripted and shot, but had to be axed. So are they really, quote, purposely not mentioning it, unquote, if they are legally barred from speaking on it? Great question. So I didn't mention this because I couldn't confirm it. There's a lot of rumors, there's articles about it. I couldn't find a definitive source saying that this was actually shot and they had to reshoot it. It sounded like propaganda to me. But let's accept that that's true, right? My point in the video was that if you're not going to include these things, don't make the movie. And the point you're making also ignores the fact that there's this thing called due diligence in filmmaking where you need to make sure you can include something before you shoot it. There's a script writing process, there's a revision process for that script, for the screenplay, there's production design that has to go into shooting stuff like that. There's casting, there's acting, there's all the hundreds of people that are on set to produce this thing. If you aren't sure that you can depict it, and it's being executive produced by the estate, by his siblings, then what the hell are you doing? Why did you make the movie in the first place? Why did you shoot these scenes in the first place? So that rings, to me, that rings false. It rings like something that somebody made up to apologize for why something that crucial, that important was left out of this movie. So the whole fact that the movie runs to 1988 is an excuse. It's dodging the truth and it's omitting the truth on purpose. Antoine Fuqua, the director's job as a filmmaker was to tell the most compelling and complete story he could about that time frame within those 2 hours or so that he had to work with. It could have been longer than 2 hours and 7 minutes. It's actually kind of short. And he spent most of that time playing complete songs back to back to back to back with very little narrative tissue in between, very little characterization between him and the family members and their relation to each other. I didn't give it a grade because I don't feel like we should be grading movies as an art form. I feel like it's a simplification and kind of an insult to the filmmaking process to put a number on it. Next comment. Trailblazer TV1 says, Michael's relationship to those children was inappropriate, but he did not do anything sexual or inappropriate to those children. I did not accuse Michael one time of doing anything sexually inappropriate, but I did establish the idea and the opinion, and to some extent the fact, if we're going by definitions, that his behavior qualifies as child grooming. It qualifies as putting these children in a compromised position that got them accustomed to really inappropriate behaviors, inappropriate patterns of behaviors. And for everybody in the comments that just calls him weird, that's an excuse. You would not call me weird if I had little white boys with me wherever I went, if I had them sleeping in here, if I had them on tour with me in hotels, and if I just claimed that, oh, my childhood was compromised, therefore I need to reclaim that childhood, my black childhood, with a bunch of random white boys. And it's whataboutism. You're gonna see a lot of whataboutism in these comments where instead of talking about what I'm actually trying to prove, you move the goalposts to talk about the court cases and the sexual allegations when I kind of gave y'all the benefit of the doubt in that video. I was not trying to insinuate any of that. I kind of glossed over it because I was trying to make a more comprehensive point. Hopefully this is coming through. I feel like I'm repeating myself. Rawbeard X says, it is upsetting how many similarities Michael has with Jimmy Savile. So not all these comments I'm reading are Michael stands. Sometimes it's people that make sense and I need to use it to further my point. Jimmy Savile is a very popular deceased TV show entertainer who made entertainment for children and was with children, was working for and around children as far as like for their benefit for years. And he paraded these children around in public in the same way that Michael Jackson paraded all these little white boys in front of the whole world for years. And it turns out in Savile's case that he was a notorious predator. Am I calling Michael Jackson a notorious predator? No, I'm not, but I am saying that the patterns match. In my job as an investigative journalist that does deep research into scammers and manipulators and grifters and sometimes people who aren't any of that but have just lied about a bunch of things, I'm looking for patterns. I'm looking for behavior that I recognize from doing research into that person and that person and that person before them. And that helps me determine, is this a scam? Like, is this something that's really taking advantage of people, or am I tripping? Like, am I off base? I have to ask myself, because y'all are smart and y'all will call me out if I get it wrong. That's happened to me before. I've never gotten it completely wrong, but I have gotten details wrong and people have called that out to me. Everything that Seville did to be very open about his association with children, but to hide some of the darker stuff, mirrors what Michael Jackson did in his lifetime. He was very open about the fact that he spent so much time with these boys, but there's so many aspects of it we didn't learn until all the allegations started to spill out. And it's like, oh, I didn't know that you were taking these boys on tour and staying with them in hotels with their family down the hall, in your room with you, in the bed with you, and for all of his fans to just gloss past all that, like moonwalk past all that, is deeply offensive, not just to me, but to all the children around the world that are in these compromised positions and can't advocate for themselves and can't even tell somebody what's happening to them and that it feels weird and it feels off because people are going to get so glued on to the legacy of the more famous person, the adult person, the one with more power in that dynamic, and just claim that, hey, I believe them over you. Who are you? Mr. Ballerize helps me make my point very succinctly. I agree. Mike was an awesome talent, but a deeply problematic man. Even assuming he's not guilty of the worst, which I hope is the case for the sake of the kids, he's still guilty of having inappropriate friendships and behavior with kids. So that nailed it, but I want to zoom in a little bit. Friendships. I would argue that a grown man cannot have the kind of friendships with children that y'all are implying. Friendships are not a thing. That's not a word you toss around when it comes to men spending a lot of private time with children. Their frontal lobe isn't developed. They don't have a healthy conception of what a healthy relationship is with an adult, what's inappropriate. These families, of course, there's a lot of culpability on the families. They suck too. I made that point in my last video and I'll make it here. But letting Michael off the hook because he saw them as friends is deeply twisted, is deeply problematic. And I'm not here for anybody's arguments that he wanted some friends. He wanted to associate himself with these children to make up for some kind of deficiency in his own life. He's the only one who's ever gotten away with that excuse. All right, for one of my least favorite excuses that have been thrown at me since I made that video, One Slap Man 2393 says the movie was meant for nostalgia and to enjoy, not to trauma dump. It would be a different movie and disrespectful to MJ. I mean, it would definitely be different. I think I was talking to a fellow creator about this earlier today. I think this movie could have been so much better. There's a reason the critic score is low, and not because they were haters. This was not a biopic. This was a music video playlist. It's disrespectful to Michael Jackson to make a movie this bad that doesn't go into the real depth of his pain and his torture as a child. They showed Joe Jackson beating him twice with a belt. That man had them performing at strip clubs. That man threw him up against the wall as hard as he could, according to Michael Jackson, as I quoted in the last video. He beat them with extension cords. He abused them by hiring those prostitutes to sleep with them and having Marlon and Michael have to sleep in the same room as their brothers did that, sending groupies to their room. He did a lot of things that were deeply psychologically scarring, and they didn't even skim the surface of that. So that's one disservice they did. That was disrespectful to Michael Jackson. What's disrespectful to Michael Jackson is to move forward with a movie that doesn't even include one of his siblings that he was the closest to, who's a megastar in her own right, Janet Jackson. She didn't want to be included. totally fine. Don't make the movie. It really is that simple. You cannot tell Michael Jackson's story adequately while leaving out Janet Jackson. It is not possible. You also can't just randomly leave out one of his brothers. I don't want to skate past that either. Randy Jackson didn't want to be depicted, therefore, he's not in it, and it's a lesser movie for it. Rebby wasn't in it. Like, he had a lot of siblings, right? And saying that it was made for nostalgia, that's a problem in and of itself. Yes, we should celebrate people, especially in the black community, who have achieved great things, but not by bending the truth and leaving out things that don't make them look as great as you want them to look. He came out this looking like Jesus Christ. Is that what y'all want? Turning Joe Jackson into a caricature of a villain. Yes, he was worse in some ways than what they showed in the movie, but he was also a complex, complete human being, and they didn't really show all those aspects either. So yeah, he deserved a different movie. He deserved a movie that didn't disrespect him, that told the whole truth, that grappled with some of his imperfections. If you're gonna make it, make it. Louis Sakalarka 6494 says, so I guess it'd be okay for the grown man next door to sleep in bed with your children, because there's no evidence nothing sexual happened. Thank you. That's my exact point. Divorce the superstardom. Divorce the songs that were such a formative part of your childhood and your, I guess, cultural identity, and really look at this for what it is. That is a random ass man who bought his way into families, who ingratiated himself with random people in order to get their child, who gave them Cartier watches and hired some of them as his employees and kept them in hotels while he was on tour to get to their children so he could hang out with them. Why are so many of y'all defending this? It's embarrassing that I have to have this conversation at all. And it's embarrassing that y'all are so up his ass, his deceased ass, that you can't see what is wrong with this scenario. The fact that we don't protect children at all. We don't care about what they're exposed to as long as it looks fine on the outside. At least to you. It never looked fine to me. I don't know what the fuck y'all talking about. A perfect example. Lively Bree Lively Me says Michael was investigated for years, and there has been zero evidence to support the allegations. He also didn't sleep in the bed with those boys. Have yet to see any actual evidence of wrongdoing from Michael. First off, compiling evidence to support sexual assault is one of the most notoriously difficult tasks in all of our legal system. In my prior video, I did not imply one time that there was any credibility to the sexual assault allegations. I didn't include anything in there that said that I thought he was guilty. I did say in my pinned comment that I believe the victims, but that was not part of my argument. It wasn't part of what I was proving. Not only are you moving the goalposts and attacking a straw man, meaning an argument I didn't make, you're just flat out lying.
But I have slept in a bed with many children. I sleep in bed with all of them. When Macaulay Culkin were little, Kieran Culkin would sleep on this side. Macaulay Culkin's on this side. His sister's in there. We're all just jamming the bed. And we wake up like dawn and go in the hot air balloon. You know, we have the footage. I have all that footage.
But is that right, Michael?
It's very right.
And as far as evidence of wrongdoing, my whole argument is that sleeping in the bed with those boys is wrongdoing in and of itself. Easy Rocco goes off the deep end. I'm not going to read all this, but he says, you can see he was weird or odd. You can say he was weird or odd, but not a predator. There's a 600-page FBI files that shows no evidence. There's a book on it. There's YouTube videos and footage that I haven't seen, apparently, and everybody's uncredible that accused him, and his room was 2 stories, even though it was a bad look. There was multiple people there, and he only did this because of his robbed childhood and being so famous and isolated. And he ends with saying he didn't understand boundaries and how it would look. All right, fam. So the whole world told Michael numerous times that this was inappropriate, that this was a bad look. He had legal repercussions for it, meaning he had to go to court about it. And then he did it after that again. So either he's developmentally challenged in a way that makes him incapable of understanding basic repercussions and consequences for your actions, or none of this is true. But since we know it's true, he said it and we have pictures, I don't know what other conclusion to draw other than he definitely understood the implications and he wanted to keep doing it. As far as him not understanding boundaries, that's an infantilization of a grown ass man who we also simultaneously know was one of the sharpest, most precise performers and entertainers ever. He was a producer. He knew exactly what he wanted to make auditorily. He knew exactly what he wanted to present as far as his performances. He was very in tune with his business acumen and how to deal with other grown men and make sure they did what he wanted to get done. A person who's capable of all that does not simultaneously, quote unquote, lack boundaries and not understand things. Official Lovely Life TV was really mad. Where's your proof? Were you personally groomed by him? If not, shut up and have several seats. You bought into the psyop of a man protecting, all caps, children. A narrative written by the real predators, still in control of the music industry. People like you are the problem. Shut your mouth about ish you know nothing about. She meant shit. Where's your proof? My proof for child grooming is that he was confirmed to have shared a bed with over a dozen children hundreds of times. That's my proof for my allegations of child grooming. Next, were you personally groomed by him? This is a false argument that posits that I can't have an opinion about something that didn't personally happen to me or that I'm not personally involved in. That was a film review. I surfaced the issues I had with that film. I called out the things they left out on purpose, and I drew connections to things that I thought were relevant. What part of that requires me to have been abused by Michael Jackson? I can't advocate for other people or underrepresented groups because I'm not a member of that group. So when I advocate against misogyny, when I advocate against transphobia, none of that's relevant because what? Because Trump didn't personally attack me. Those issues impact me. I have dealt with being overly sexualized as a teenager too early. I know what that can do to a person psychologically. That's why it's relevant. I'm going to make a whole video about my experiences and how it parallels with a lot of these grown ass men that tend to go off the deep end and how that kind of abuse doesn't turn you into an assaulter or a person with weird ass tendencies like Michael Jackson. But that's a separate video. But that's why. That's why I choose to speak up. What part of a grown famous celebrity buying his way and ingratiating his way into whole families and giving them jobs and gifts in exchange for time with their children and parading them around in front of the world as if the shit is normal? What part of that was him protecting children? Even if you buy this whole Epstein Files thing that everybody's throwing in my comments about, oh, he was actually protecting them. Bullshit. One, it started way before the Epstein Island thing was really on and popping like that. If you look at the timeline, like I said, he was hanging with Emmanuel Lewis in 1983 on tour. And finally, people like me being the problem is fucking wild. If me calling out this mass psychosis around celebrating a deeply problematic man after this propaganda piece comes out on this large of a scale is the real problem, what are child groomers? More about me being the problem, and this is one of the ones I wanted to get to because this is a personal attack. Abundance Abounded says, look at this guy's whole video catalog. He only does videos on blacks that grift. He misses any white grifters who grift in greater multitude and for greater gains, and chooses to focus on our black greats who were exonerated and provably set up to be framed. He is an agent of chaos and destruction towards the black community. Wow. He won't attack negative whites or the power structure because he's a weak, controlled tool of the system. I actually love this criticism more than anything else I received because it reflects the nature of my job itself. For anybody who aspires to be a content creator, don't go into it with the idea that people are going to actually look at what you've made before they talk about you, that they're actually going to get an accurate picture of what you've accomplished and the things you've discussed before throwing their insults at you to try to jab you and make you feel something. If you're talking about anything that matters, if you're discussing anything that has any kind of importance, you're going to get a lot of backlash and you're going to get a lot of people claiming you're a tool of the system. And I think this general thinking betrays how deeply entrenched your beliefs are in attachment to these celebrities and these figures in our culture. For one, I don't talk about celebrities very often. I just don't. My whole reputation, my whole brand has been built on making exposés about scammers, manipulators, people who use financial education to mislead and grift off of people who look like us. So, for one, my subject matter doesn't even reflect what I'm being accused of here. I'm not a person who lives in the low hanging fruit like a lot of my peers. I'm not calling any names out, but it is what it is. Whenever something happens, celebrity drama, breakups, I don't even talk about it. I talk about the things that directly impact us financially and as far as social well being. It's just easy. It's easy to tell yourself that narrative that I'm here to hurt black people. Meanwhile, I provided a free resource library and attachments to all my deep dives episodes that was all my hard work of compiling all these free resources that make sure that you can save money, make sure you're not getting taken in by scams, helping you define what these scams are. It's beyond me making money, and it always has been. It's also easy to buy the popular narrative that Michael Jackson is some kind of angel or man child that didn't understand the consequences and the repercussions of what he was doing and the impact that would have to a generation of children that look up to him. Carmelita Jones says, list the children that slept in the bed with MJ who are now gay. I, as an only child, slept in the bed with my aunt, grown female cousins, and I am very, all caps, heterosexual. I believe you. Do better. I follow you for facts, not recycled opinions. Again, all caps. This is a complete non sequitur. That means an argument that doesn't follow the chain of logic that's already been established. I did not accuse Michael Jackson of converting children to homosexuality. Not once. That wasn't part of my argument. Child grooming has nothing to do with changing someone's sexuality. It has everything to do with inappropriate behaviors that plant a seed and open someone up to further abuse later, whether it's that person, whether it's another grown ass man that shouldn't be in the bed with them. That was my argument. That was the core of it. Ultimately, this kind of comment is the byproduct of someone who's so poorly educated about the intersectionality between gender expression, sexual identity, and celebrity worship and grooming that you resort to the lowest common denominator. You insist that I'm making an argument that I'm not because you see homosexuality as the most harmful thing someone possibly can fall into. I don't. So that's where we differ. I think I've made my point, but I want to read one more comment that kind of sets the stage for my whole central point, the main takeaway that I want y'all to live with that you might not have heard before. El the Genie says, I grew up in the early 2000s. For most of my life, I believed the story that my mom told me. There was only one accusation against him, and it was a kid who was manipulated into lying by his greedy parents. My mom also used to tell me that MJ had those sleepovers because he was still a kid on the inside. I only found out about the extent of evidence against him as an adult. Imagine the damage that a parent can do to a child by teaching them that Michael Jackson's behavior was okay. Is it okay to teach your kids that it's normal for adults to have sleepovers and share a bed with little children? That's what I believed when I was a kid. I mean, what else is there? This is my point. This is child grooming. This is on a scale that actually no other child groomer would be able to achieve. So it's worse. Children in countries where they don't even know what his lyrics mean may think that it's okay for a grown, strange man to be buddy buddy with children and share a bed with them and nuzzle them and kiss them on the forehead and hug them and joke with them and all these things in private. It's not okay. And Michael Jackson made people believe that it was okay. There's proof. Ms. Krim M5U, I want to make something perfectly clear here about this opinion. Essentially, they're saying that MJ was a bit touched, if not on the spectrum. Not that there's anything wrong with it, nor that he should get a pass for his bad decisions. Those bad decisions ended up taking his life, sadly. I want to make it clear that we can't dump this off on mental illness or autism, especially. No, we have to peel back all these excuses and look at this behavior for what it is. Whether he did it for a nefarious purpose that led to the allegations that several children accused him of, that's actually not what I'm here to debate today. I'm starting with a very simple premise that there is a such thing as inappropriate behavior with children and that he exhibited it for years. He's a bad role model. He's not a person that we should be elevating to this degree. And the music might be great, but two things can be true at the same time.